Hi folks, I'm sorry to see you've been depleted in numbers, but I guess a lot of your colleagues must be staying home and staying safe as people are being forced to do up and down the country.
Laura McClure's Deepfake bill has been pulled from the biscuit tin. How important is it, and how important is it as well that we get people from across Parliament to support this?
It's important to the victims of deepfake porn. These are images that would be illegal if they're real. They're fake, but they look real and they embarrass, harm and humiliate the people who appear to be in them. That's why it's critical that we extend the Harmful Digital Communications Act so that a fake pornographic image of someone is as illegal as a real one, because it's doing just as much harm to a lot of young people.
And do you wish that this was a government bill rather than one that had to be pulled out of the biscuit tin?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I wish it was a government bill, but of course, the government has a very full agenda. Every second Wednesday in Parliament is members' bills, and important business can be done then too. I mean, I legalised euthanasia on private members' bill day, and maybe Laura McClure is about to make a big difference for a lot of young people there too.
What sort of consequences would there be for people who did engage in deepfakes?
Well, it depends on the judgment of the Harmful Digital Communications Act. At the very least, they can be forced to take it down. They can face further sanctions if they don't.
Yesterday you were talking up the results of the Oranga Tamariki, the number of children harmed in care. But the Children's Commissioner and the Independent Children's Monitor are both saying that the number of children in care in total has increased. How do you explain that?
Well, simply the fact that the likelihood of being harmed is lower, and yet we've got the number of people being harmed we've got the number of people getting harmed going down. If there's more people in care and the number of people getting harmed is down, then the results are actually better than we thought. So maybe they need to look at, well, what are the numbers actually saying? I think they've misinterpreted them.
They say the number of children in residences who were harmed is largely the same as the previous year, dropping from 118 to 115. That's just 3 children.
Well, just a second. You've got fewer people being harmed as a percentage of the people that are there. Now, you can hardly say that because there are more people there, a drop is not a drop. The fact is, if you are a child in care, you are safer than you were before. That's a massive achievement. Now, to have people coming out, and trying to do that kind of manipulation of statistics is just really irresponsible. The facts are that if you have more people, then the chance of being harmed is higher. We've actually lowered that chance by taking a series of steps that reduce the chance of people being harmed.
They're also saying that 13% of those in the return home care were harmed, and that's the highest rate in that category since 2019.
Well, obviously there's going to be subsets, and if you break down through a data table, you can find examples that are against the run of play. But overwhelmingly, if you are somebody in a care home in New Zealand, you are now less likely to be harmed than 2 years ago. That chance has never dropped before, and in the wake of our Royal Commission on Abuse and State Care, I think it's a really important achievement that Karen Chua has made tangible changes. That means that even when the number of people has gone up, the number that are being harmed has gone down, and the chance of being harmed has reduced significantly. Now, if people in the, whoever you said, Children's Commissioner or whatever, if they can't just focus on getting really basic statistical understanding right, then we've got bigger trouble than I realise.
Those numbers come from the Oranga Tamarikis.
Well, no one's denying that, mate, but you actually don't seem to understand what the numbers mean. That's my point.
What's the ACT position on the other members' bill, the social media ban for 16s, I think it is?
Look, we think the amount of harm that is happening online to young people is enormous. The will to try and fix that is admirable. However, the simple act of banning is something that is running into trouble all over the world. Even since that bill was drafted, we've seen a lot of problems with it. I don't believe that a simple ban will fix the problem. That's why the ACT Party called for an inquiry at Select Committee that experts from all over the world have been called into. That inquiry will report back at the start of next year. By the same time, we will also have a lot more knowledge of how it's going in the UK, how it's going in Australia, and then I think we'll have an opportunity to do something that will actually work, because if saving children from online harm is worth doing, it is worth doing right.
Will ACT be voting that members' bill down then at the first reader?
Well, I think it's unlikely that we'd support a bill while there is still an inquiry underway. It's tempting because we know how much people care about this. It would be easy to just stand here and say, hey, we're supporting a solution. but we're not convinced the solution will work. The situation is moving very rapidly. I don't think the law is keeping up with technology, and it would be a mistake to be implementing something just as the Australians and British are having serious trouble making it work.
We've got thousands of workers on strike today exercising their right to strike and protest. Have you got any problem with that?
No, I think people have a right to strike, and I believe in freedom of association. It's in the Bill of Rights. I think, frankly, the weather has kept more people home than the strikes today. Nonetheless, I also make the point that there is a disconnect between what these union organisers are asking for and the challenges that most New Zealanders are facing. You look at nurses, $125,000 at the top of the scale, start off at $75,000. A nurse by next June could be getting $86,000, having started on $75,000 this year. And yet they're rejecting that. Well, not a lot of New Zealanders have a starting salary of $75,000 and expect to make $86,000 next year. You look at teachers, 2 out of 3 teachers earning over $100,000. They've had 14.5% increase in the last 3 years. A lot of the people who are paying tax and having to reorganise their day so that their kids can be cared for after school or during school today, those people haven't had that sort of increase. So we need a bit of a connection between the challenges and the wages that most tax-paying New Zealanders receive and the demands being made by these union organisers.
But beyond the reason why you support their right to strike today?
Well, I support people's right to strike for the simple reason of freedom of association. I think people have a right to form an alliance, and if you and Benedict want to sit there and say, I'm not going to work until he works and vice versa, then you have a right to do that. That's a basic human association. Look, you guys are thinking about it, aren't you? He's off. Come on, you got to go too if he does that, right? But so it's a basic human right to be able to make a contract with another person and say, I won't work if she doesn't work, or vice versa. On the other hand, it doesn't mean that it's always right to do it. And I would just say the offers on the table are pretty generous, and more so than a lot of New Zealanders who pay the taxes to fund it and need the healthcare and need their kids at school today are actually getting themselves.
Is it fair though to focus on the pay when it's clearly not just about the pay, especially for the healthcare workers? It's about safe staffing, and these are issues that they've flagged for years and years.
We have a government that's hired 2,000 nurses since the last election. I don't think that's been widely appreciated. Yes, there are challenges. There's been challenges, as you say, for years and years. But this government's taken healthcare funding from $30 billion to $32 billion. We've hired another 2,000 nurses. A nurse at the top of the scale is getting $125,000. We've offered an increase on top of that. A nurse is paid the same as a nurse in New South Wales, where they have generally a much higher wage rate. So, I think you have to put these things in a bit of perspective.
But don't you need to do that just to be market competitive? You have to be able to compete with, especially Australia, right?
Well, I think that's the challenge that all of New Zealand faces, is that wages on average are higher, and that's something that got me interested in politics 20 years ago. That is something I think we need to focus on as a country, is closing the wage gap with Australia. But we won't do that in the time that we need to conclude these negotiations and get our nurses, doctors and teachers back to the workforce.
Just back on those questions that Russell was asking you earlier. So the Children's Commissioner is saying, hey, it is good, secure, abuse and secure care went down. But they're saying that overall, the number of children in state care being abused or neglected has increased. This is unacceptable.
Well, according to the numbers that he just gave, have actually gone down slightly, even while the number of people in state care has increased. So as I interpret what Russell's saying, that's the opposite of that.
Oh, I think they're saying the opposite. I think they're saying it's going.
Yeah.
It's
well,
going
either they or Russell are wrong. But if you've got a 14% decrease in the number of people being abused, that is real progress, and that comes from making sure the contraband's kept out, asking the people to actually wear uniforms, having proactive intervention and misbehaviour. All of these changes that have been made are very positive. I think it's a real shame that people are trying to dice and slice statistics to try and present the most negative possible view, when in actual fact the chance of a child being harmed in state care has gone down 14%. That's an enormous achievement.
Do you think the way that the government, or that the minister, or that you spoke about it yesterday, was in any way kind of slicing and dicing those statistics?
No, because the simple question is, if you're a child who goes into state care, what's the chance of being harmed? That's gone down 14%. That's a fact. Now, of course, you could always say, oh, but there's more or there's less than last year. As a total number of people who have the potential to be harmed, that's true. But what is the rate of harm? That has gone down. Why? Because the culture's improved, because the surveillance of contraband's improved, because there's consequences and accountability for misbehaviour that there wasn't before. These are all enormously positive things. To make the argument, oh well, yes, there's less people being abused, but there's more people in care. I mean, well, that is slicing and dicing. You know? All right, thanks, folks. Cheers.